She was just mopping the lobby floor when everything changed. The CEO heard her speaking Mandarin, then Spanish, and then French, each one as fluent as a native speaker. What happened next stunned the entire company. At Hallberg International, the cleaning staff were mostly invisible. Not because anyone was being mean, but because people just didn't notice them. They came in quietly after hours, pushing carts, changing trash bags, wiping down the conference tables, blending in like background music. It was just part of the routine. That Monday morning in downtown Fort Worth, Texas, the lobby was alive with movement. Heels clacking against the polished tiles, fingers tapping across phones, people discussing deadlines, clutching coffee cups like they were sacred. Jonathan Kellerman, the company's CEO, was walking his usual path from the parking garage to the executive suite on the 18th floor when he heard something strange. A voice, smooth, clear, and rolling in Mandarin. He froze. Not just because it was Mandarin, but because of who was speaking it. He scanned the lobby, half expecting to see one of the international sales reps. But then his eyes landed on her. A woman in a burgundy janitor uniform, her short twists tied back in a ponytail, standing next to the touchscreen lobby directory. She was speaking calmly with an older gentleman in a navy jacket and thick glasses who looked both confused and relieved. She was guiding him gently, her tone firm yet kind, pointing toward the elevators. Kellerman squinted, trying to place her. He'd seen her before, maybe in the hallways after late meetings. Always polite. Always quiet. Never made eye contact unless spoken to. He didn't even know her name. And yet here she was, confidently explaining building directions in Mandarin like she belonged on the cover of Forbes. He started walking toward her. As he got closer, she wrapped up the Mandarin conversation and turned to face a delivery man holding a clipboard. Without missing a beat, she switched to Spanish. Sí, gracias. The man nodded, surprised but grateful. Then she turned again, this time to a vendor standing nearby, puzzled by a stack of mismarked boxes. C'est mal marque. La conference BS de l'autre côté, she said in perfect French, offering a gentle smile as she pointed him in the right direction. Kellerman's jaw clenched, not from anger, but from something else, something sharper. Guilt. He'd spent over 20 years in global logistics, expanding into new markets, hiring interpreters, building cross-cultural teams, and somehow, the most multilingual person he'd come across in years had been scrubbing toilets just 2 floors below him. He took another step forward, this time with curiosity leading the way. Excuse me. She turned a bit startled but calm. Yes, sir. He gave her a small, faint smile. That was Mandarin, right? Yes, sir. You speak it fluently? Yes, and Spanish. French too. She nodded again. Any others? Portuguese, German, Arabic, Italian, Swahili. And I read Latin, though I don't really count that one. Kellerman blinked. You speak 9 languages? Yes, sir. There was no pride in her voice, no show-off attitude. Just facts. Straight and solid. He stared for a moment, processing the idea that the woman mopping his lobby was basically a walking United Nations. What's your name? Denise Atwater. Miss Atwater, are you free for a few minutes? Her eyebrows lifted just slightly. Now. Yes. I'd like to speak with you in my office. He noticed the hesitation in her eyes. Not fear, exactly. Just that natural reaction people have when they're so used to being overlooked or underestimated. Still, she nodded slowly. All right. He pressed the elevator button, holding the door for her. Inside, silence filled the air as the elevator rose. Then she broke it. I've worked here 13 years, she said, almost to herself. Never thought I'd be invited up. He turned slightly toward her, offering a small, honest smile. You might be surprised how quickly things can change. But even he didn't know how much was about to change. Not for her, and not for him. The elevator dinged. Denise stepped out first, her footsteps quiet on the polished wood floor of the executive hallway. The air smelled like citrus and leather. Money, if you could bottle the scent. Kellerman's assistant looked up, wide-eyed, at the sight of Denise beside him. He didn't explain, just nodded, and the assistant opened the door. Inside the office, he motioned toward a chair. Please sit. She lowered herself onto it with care, folding her hands in her lap. Her eyes moved slowly around the space. Not impressed, just observant. Behind him hung a massive world map, dotted with colored pins. A tray of espresso cups sat on a table. A photo of his daughters. A dusty trade award from Brussels. Kellerman sat across from her, leaning in slightly. "Denise, I'm going to be honest. I didn't think I'd be having this conversation today." She nodded once. Her posture didn't change. Her expression was unreadable. "But I just heard you flip through 3 languages like it was nothing. I need to ask, how does someone like you end up cleaning floors here?" For a moment, she didn't answer. She looked at the window, then back at him. "You got time for the truth?" she asked. "I wouldn't have asked otherwise," he said. She sighed. "All right then." She rubbed her palms together like she was warming up the words. "I was born in Toledo, Ohio. Only child. My dad was a pipe fitter, my mom worked as a nurse's aide. They didn't have much, but they pushed education like it was gospel. I got a full ride to Kent State. Majored in linguistics. Was halfway through my master's when my mom got sick." She paused, her eyes drifting for a second like she was rewinding time. "I came home to take care of her. Then my dad died of a stroke 6 months later. Everything just unraveled after that." She tilted her head slightly, gathering up more memories. "I had a baby. No money. No partner who stayed. So I worked whatever came my way, grocery stores, nursing homes, temp jobs. Eventually, a custodial supervisor here offered me night shifts. It let me pick my daughter up from school, kept the lights on. That's how I ended up here." Kellerman didn't interrupt. He just listened, really listened. "But the languages?" she continued. "I never stopped learning. Borrowed textbooks, listened to old recordings, read newspapers in 5 different tongues, just to stay sharp. It's what I do. The only thing that still makes me feel like I matter." Her voice was steady, not bitter, not dramatic. Just real. "Most people never ask," she added. "They see the uniform and assume." That word assume hung in the air like smoke. Kellerman sat back, the weight of her story pressing down on him. She cleared her throat. "Look, Mr. Kellerman. I'm not saying this to make anyone feel bad. I'm not angry. Life happened. I did what I had to do. Still do. But you asked, that's the truth." He exhaled slowly. Denise Atwater wasn't asking for pity. She wasn't even asking for help. She had simply handed him the truth, plain, honest, and a little heartbreaking. "You ever think about doing anything else?" he asked. She shrugged. "Sometimes. But it's hard to dream when the rent's due." Silence again. But this one felt heavier, like something big was sitting in the space between them. Kellerman reached for his notebook and scribbled something down. "What are you writing?" she asked, a hint of curiosity slipping in. He looked up. "Ideas." But one idea was already forming fast, and it wasn't small. That conversation stayed with him all day. Even during budget calls and vendor meetings, his mind kept drifting back to Denise, to her calm voice, and how she'd listed 9 languages like they were tools she used daily. That kind of fluency didn't just happen. It took discipline, obsession, heart. Around 3:45 p.m., he left the executive suite and took the elevator down to the service level. He wanted to see for himself. Down there, the air was warmer. The walls, scuffed and marked from carts and boots. He passed maintenance rooms, storage racks, stacked water bottles, until he reached the janitorial supply room. Through the open door, he saw Denise restocking microfiber cloths. "Mind if I bother you again?" he said, stepping inside. She turned, a bit surprised. "You came down here?" He smiled. "Couldn't stop thinking about our talk. Listen, I need a favor." She wiped her hands. "What kind of favor?" "There's a meeting upstairs. A group from the Sao Paulo office came early. Our translator canceled. Can you help?" She hesitated for only a second. "Portuguese? Yeah, I can do that." Minutes later, they were in conference room 4C. Four Brazilian executives sat awkwardly, checking phones and shifting in their seats. Denise stepped in quietly, nodded, and began speaking in perfect Portuguese. Kellerman watched the room change. Shoulders relaxed. Eyes met. It wasn't just translation. It was connection. When one executive cracked a joke, Denise answered with one of her own. Everyone laughed. Kellerman didn't understand the words, but he understood the impact. After 20 minutes, the meeting wrapped up. One of the executives turned to him and said in English, "She's better than anyone we've worked with this year. Where do you find her?" Kellerman glanced at Denise, who was already stacking used coffee cups. "Right here," he replied. Back in the hallway, he caught up with her. "You ever do professional translation before?" She shook her head. "Just helped out at hospitals, government offices, stuff like that. No certificates. No time for school. My daughter needed me more." He nodded. "Where is she now?" "She's 26. A nurse in Tempe. Paid for school herself. Stubborn like her mama." They both smiled. For a moment, it wasn't CEO and janitor. Just two people talking about life. They rode the elevator back to the service level, where Denise clocked back in. "I've still got 2 more floors to clean," she said. Before walking off, she turned and said something that stuck. "I didn't do anything special today." Kellerman raised an eyebrow. "That's not how it looked to me." She gave him a soft smile, then walked away into the hallway. That night, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Kellerman sat in his car for a long time before heading home that night. The engine idled as the skyline glowed dimly beyond the windshield, but his mind wasn't on traffic or meetings. He thought about Denise, her story, her quiet brilliance, and the blind spots they'd all been living with. The pressure to grow the company was always there. Investor calls, quarterly projections, the constant push for innovation. But what if they'd been searching in all the wrong places? They'd spent years recruiting overseas, consulting DI firms, pushing for fresh blood. But sometimes the gold was already buried in your own backyard. And once you saw it, the only question left was, what are you going to do about it? The next morning, Denise had just finished wiping down the east lobby when her supervisor, Ron, tapped her shoulder. "Hey, Mr. Kellerman wants to see you again," he said, not looking annoyed, but definitely off. Denise blinked. "Did I do something wrong?" Ron shook his head. "Didn't say. Just told me to send you up." She washed her hands, dried them on a towel, and made her way upstairs. This time, people noticed her. Employees who usually passed her without a glance now whispered, smiled, nodded. One receptionist even gave her a look that said, "You're about to find out something big." When she entered the executive suite, Kellerman was standing near the window, sipping coffee and staring at the skyline. He didn't turn around right away. "Come in," he said, finally turning to face her. She stood quietly. "I've been thinking," he said, setting his mug down. "About talent. About waste. About how many brilliant people never get a shot. Not because they're not qualified, but because no one ever looks twice." She said nothing. She'd heard this kind of talk before, usually from people who thought praise was a currency. "I want to create a new role," he continued. "One that didn't exist before. Something this company needs, whether we knew it or not." She raised an eyebrow. "What kind of role?" "Cultural liaison for international affairs. Someone who can speak the languages, catch the nuances, bridge the gaps. Handle vendors, visitors, documents, everything global. We keep fumbling." Denise's mouth parted, but no words came out. "You're more qualified than most of the leadership team," Kellerman said. "You've already proven you can handle it, with grace, patience, and brains." She stared at him. "Is this real?" "As real as it gets. I don't have a college degree. You have something better. Experience, commitment, and fluency in 9 languages. You think I care about a piece of paper?" She shifted. "Why me?" He met her eyes. "Because I watched you solve 3 problems in 3 languages before 9 a.m. yesterday. And because I'm tired of walking past people like you. People doing twice the work for half the credit." She crossed her arms. "You know what people are going to say." "I don't care." She looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly she exhaled. "I've never had an office job. Never had a title." "You'll learn fast. I don't have clothes for this kind of thing. I'll have HR send you a wardrobe stipend." She chuckled, dry but amused. "You thought of everything, huh? I'm trying." She paused again. "What about my shift downstairs? Who replaces me?" "We'll find someone." But no one can replace you. They stood there in silence for a while. Then Denise looked down at her hands, then back at him. You sure this isn't a favor? No, he said. It's overdue recognition. Her lip trembled slightly, but she bit it, blinked away the tears before they had the chance to fall. All right then, she said. Let's see what I can do. He extended his hand. She shook it. It wasn't just a handshake, it was history being rewritten. What neither of them expected was how fast the building would catch fire with rumors. By Wednesday, the whispers had spread floor to floor. Denise Atwater, the janitor from the night shift, had been promoted to an executive-level position. Nobody knew the full story. All they knew was that she spoke multiple languages, that the CEO had personally selected her, and that she maybe had some mysterious past. Government work? Maybe she was undercover? In the staff lounge, 2 marketing assistants leaned over their salads. I'm just saying, one whispered. I have a master's in international business. I've been waiting 2 years for a promotion. This lady was scrubbing urinals last week. Her friend shrugged. Maybe she knows something we don't. Oh please, the first said. It's Kellerman trying to look progressive. Check a box. That same vibe crept into boardrooms, Slack messages, conference calls. Quiet resentment. Confusion. People weren't used to promotions skipping the ladder. Denise felt it the second she walked into her new office on the 12th floor. It was modest, just a desk, a plant, and a computer she hadn't touched yet. But to her, it looked like a new planet. Before HR finished onboarding her, she asked if she could keep the night uniform, not to wear, just to remind herself. That afternoon, she met with Victor, head of international operations. He walked in with a clipboard and tight lips. Didn't shake her hand. Didn't sit down. So, he said, with a smile that wasn't a smile. You're the new liaison? Denise looked up, calm but steady. That's right. I'm told you have experience in corporate environments, Victor said, standing stiffly at the edge of her desk. Denise gave a small, controlled smile. Only from the outside looking in. He didn't laugh. Instead, he dropped a thick folder onto her desk with a thud. I've got reports from Italy, contracts from Dubai, and a vendor issue in Sao Paulo. Think you can manage that? She stood, meeting his gaze without hesitation. I'll need a few hours to review, but yes. Victor nodded, barely, and walked out without another word. Later that night, Kellerman stopped by her office. Denise was still there, flipping through contracts, her notes scribbled across the margins. How's day one? He asked, leaning in the doorway. She let out a breath and leaned back in her chair. I've had worse. He smiled. Victor give you a hard time? He doesn't scare me, she replied, cool and composed. Then she paused, eyes narrowing. But can I ask you something? Anything. Why now? Why me? You could have handed me a bonus and kept it moving. Kellerman stepped further into the room and leaned against her desk. Because I saw myself in you. She raised a brow. You were a janitor? No, he chuckled. But I was invisible once. Grew up in a nothing town. My dad fixed cars for a living. I worked 3 jobs just to crawl through college. People didn't think I belonged in boardrooms either. She nodded slowly. And now you decide who gets in. He returned the nod. Exactly. There was a beat of silence before she looked down at the folder again. I'll be honest, she admitted. I'm nervous. Good, he said. That means you care. Denise looked up again, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. There's going to be people who hate this. They'll get over it. Or they won't. Either way, we're moving forward. Kellerman stood up straighter. You've got a story, Denise. A real one. And now you've got a platform. As the door clicked behind him, she sat in silence. The skyline outside twinkled like distant possibilities. She glanced at the janitor's badge still in her drawer, picked it up, ran her thumb across the faded plastic, then tucked it away. Not to forget, but to remember, every unpaid hour, every skipped birthday, every silent humiliation. Because this story wasn't just hers anymore. And the spotlight was only beginning to grow. By Friday, a nameplate was mounted on her office door. Denise Atwater, Cultural Liaison, International Affairs. Brushed steel, bold black lettering. It was real, clean, permanent. Then the email dropped. A company-wide announcement from Kellerman. It was short, pointed, and left no room for interpretation. He introduced Denise, outlined her qualifications, and stated clearly, she was not a symbol, not a token. She was the best person for the role. Period. But the noise didn't stop. Some grumbled behind closed doors. Others softened after watching her in action. Denise didn't strut. She didn't perform. She worked. Quietly. Efficiently. Fluently. She corrected translation errors in old contracts that had cost the company thousands. She bridged miscommunications software couldn't. She made people feel seen and respected. On Monday, she was invited to a high-stakes meeting with delegates from Morocco. The company's North African expansion had stalled for months, tangled in cultural misunderstandings. Denise entered the boardroom in a soft beige blazer, sat at the table, and introduced herself in fluent Moroccan Arabic. The air shifted. You could feel it. Posture changed. Expressions warmed. Suspicion melted into attentiveness. When someone speaks your language, they're not just understood, they're respected. After the meeting, one of the Moroccan partners approached her privately, hand pressed gently to his chest. "No one's ever done that for us," he said. "Not in our language. Not like that." Denise smiled softly. "You matter. That's all." By midweek, another quiet change occurred. No press release. No catered celebration. Just a simple, powerful gesture. The company's main training room, the one where all new hires gathered and where leaders hosted workshops, was renamed. The old plaque came down. In its place, the Atwater Room. No fanfare. Just meaning. That afternoon, Kellerman stood outside the room, watching a fresh group of interns trickle in. One of them asked, "Who's Atwater?" A senior staffer responded, "Someone who reminded this place that greatness doesn't always wear a suit." That same day, Denise found an envelope on her desk. No return address. Her name was written in block letters. Inside was a note. "I used to think I'd be invisible forever. But today, I stood a little taller, because of you. Thank you." No signature. Just proof. People were watching. People who needed to see this. Denise stared at the note, her throat tightening. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. Because that was the moment it hit her. This wasn't just a job. It was a door. But not every door stays open without a fight. And someone was already planning to push back. Late Thursday, she was called into a meeting. Not by Kellerman, but by someone higher. Eleanor Craig, a senior board member who'd flown in from Dallas. Been with the company since the 90s. Known for sharp suits and a sharper tongue. Denise entered the stark conference room on the 17th floor, where Eleanor sat with a stack of documents and a stare that cut. "Have a seat," Eleanor said without looking up. Denise sat, posture composed. Eleanor tapped her pen twice. "Miss Atwater," she began, "I've reviewed your file. You have no college degree, no prior corporate training, no management certifications." Denise didn't flinch. "That's correct." Eleanor Craig folded her hands and tilted her head, studying Denise like a puzzle she didn't quite trust. "You were a janitor here 3 weeks ago." "I was." Eleanor leaned back in her chair. "Help me understand how someone with your background is now handling high-level international affairs." Denise met her gaze evenly. "Because I speak the languages. I understand the cultures. I've already fixed 2 vendor contracts, cleared a 3-month delay with our Morocco deal, and helped secure a verbal agreement with our Brazilian partners. Legal's finalizing it next week." Eleanor pursed her lips. "So you think this company should be run on instinct and charm?" Denise offered a cool smile. "No, ma'am. I think it should be run on results." For a moment, Eleanor blinked, hesitating just enough for Denise to see the crack in the facade. "I don't need to be liked," Denise added. "But I do need to be useful. And I am." Eleanor closed the folder slowly and stood. "You're a gamble." Denise's voice was quiet, steady. "I'm used to that. My entire life's been one." When the meeting ended, Denise didn't return to her office. Instead, She stepped out of the building and sat on a bench across the street, staring at the glass tower that now carried her name on a door. Years ago, she used to walk by that building in her janitor's uniform, cleaning supplies in hand, wondering if anyone even saw her. Now they all did, and some of them didn't like it. She pulled out her phone and called her daughter. "Hey Ma," her daughter answered. "Everything okay?" Denise hesitated, then gave a soft nod to herself. "Yeah, just needed to hear your voice." "You sure?" "I'm sure." They talked for a few minutes, groceries, her daughter's dog, a movie they both wanted to see. It was ordinary, and that was exactly what Denise needed. Her daughter's laugh steadied her. When they hung up, she sat in silence for a few more moments, then stood, crossed the street again, and rode the elevator up to her floor. By morning, word of her meeting with Eleanor had somehow spread through the office. People whispered. Some expected Denise to shrink. Instead, she showed up early. She led the team meeting with calm authority, took a call with the German office without a translator, and spoke with quiet confidence. She didn't flinch, didn't crack, and she didn't act like someone who needed to prove anything. That same afternoon, a note appeared on the whiteboard outside her office. 3 words. No signature. "We see you." In the weeks that followed, something began to shift. People started coming to her. Not just for translation, but for guidance, for advice, for courage. Denise became the person others trusted before pitching ideas. She sat with interns, helping them prepare for presentations. And no matter who walked through her door, she treated them with the same level of dignity and attention. One afternoon, a shy Vietnamese intern named Bao approached her. "How did you learn all those languages?" he asked. Denise smiled. "One word at a time," she said. "Same way you will." She wasn't just doing her job, she was changing the culture. One day, Kellerman met her in the break room for coffee. "Been hearing good things," he said. "I've been trying to ignore the bad ones," she replied with a smirk. "You're making waves." She raised an eyebrow. "That a good thing?" He nodded. "Around here, it means you're doing something right." They stood for a moment, sipping quietly. "You know," he added, "I've been thinking about starting a training program for internal talent, especially folks working non-desk roles. There are probably more Denises in this building." She nodded. "There are. They just haven't been seen yet." He looked at her. "Want to help me build it?" Her face lit up. "Already started in my head." By the end of the month, the pilot program launched. They called it Voice Inside, a new initiative offering language training, mentorship, and cross-department visibility for employees from overlooked roles. It was Denise's idea, and it caught fire. A few weeks later, she was invited to speak at a logistics leadership summit in Cincinnati. She stood in front of a full room, her voice clear, her presence unapologetic. "I was never just a janitor," she told the crowd. "I was fluent. I was capable. I was ready. But nobody ever looked long enough to see it. So the next time you pass someone without a title, ask yourself, what are you really missing?" Silence swept the room. Then applause sustained standing, filled with recognition. On her way out, a young man stopped her. Tears shimmered in his eyes. "My mom's a housekeeper," he said. "And she speaks 5 languages. I used to be embarrassed to say that." Denise placed a hand on his arm. "Don't ever be ashamed of where you come from," she said. "The only thing to be ashamed of is staying blind to brilliance." She left the building taller than she'd ever felt. Not because of the applause, not because of the title, but because she hadn't had to trade who she was to earn respect. She brought her full self into the room. Every layer, every scar, every language. And that made all the difference. Because the truth is simple. Never assume someone's worth based on what they wear, where they work, or what their resume says. Talent has no dress code. Intelligence doesn't need permission. And brilliance? It can walk right past you holding a mop and wearing a name tag. So if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or ignored, keep going. The right person will see you. And when they do, don't just take a seat at the table. Bring more chairs with you.